Hey guys, it's Aiden, and welcome back to another video. So, first off, I want to apologize in advance for the horrible audio quality in this video. I heard myself in the mic, and I just sound really bad. So, OBS wasn't working, so I had to resort to something else, and it's just gonna sound really bad. I'm super sorry. So basically, in this video, I'm going to go over the SwitchX, which is basically my vision for the successor to the Switch. So I wanted to make a plan for Nintendo's next console, and due to Nintendo's habit of making sequels to their consoles, think the Super Nintendo for the Nintendo Entertainment System, the GameCube for the N64. Technically it was a sequel, not really though. And obviously the Wii U for the Wii. But this one, I think, with the plan that I made, I think might actually be quite successful. So let's get into it. So basically, these are some of the things I wanted this new Switch to have. So the console itself will have a higher screen resolution and be slightly larger. That wasn't really a problem, but just so it can hold some more software and hardware technically. And the dock itself will have more output options, so think like AV cords and other things for more like high-tech TVs or even older TVs if you have one of those. So the inside will have more padding, and there will be potentially some sort of lock. I just feel like I've seen a Switch in a dock before, and it just honestly looks like it could fall out at any second if the dock somehow gets tipped. So I just think that some sort of thing that could keep the Switch inside would be a nice addition. So the Joy-Cons. The small SL, and SR buttons are absolutely horrendous on the Switch Joy-Cons, so I think larger versions of these would make sense, and maybe wider or something like that. The D-pad, honestly there aren't really any problems that I have with the Joy-Con D-pad. I just think that the option between the 4-button D-pad that the Switch Joy-Cons have and something more traditional, like maybe a Wiimote D-pad, just something that could give players an option if they want one. Maybe a more grippable bottom half, not because the Joy-Cons themselves are slippery in any way, I just think that would be beneficial. And with the way that the triggers are designed on the Switch, or on the Joy-Cons and even the Pro Controller, it would give plenty of room for some sort of analog triggers. So, next up, the Pro Controller. The aforementioned analog triggers will be present here as well, and the D-pad option. So you could either choose this, the 4-button D-pad, as you can see right here, or you could choose this standard D-pad, as you see right here. And the right analog stick will have NFC, and I'm thinking, do you remember how the Super Nintendo controller had buttons that had slight little ridges on the edge, so that your thumb kind of welded into them more? I think that this would be a great addition for a new Pro Controller. So next up, compatibility. They will have full backwards compatibility with the Switch, as should be expected. Virtual Console for consoles up to the N64 and handhelds up to the DS. I think that doing consoles and handhelds would make sense, just because the Switch is a hybrid console and is a console and a handheld at the same time. So celebrating Nintendo's history in both of these categories just makes sense. And you may be saying, why up to the DS and handhelds, but only up to the N64 and consoles? And that's because we will be offering dock attachments to play GameCube and Wii games, basically the entire library added in compatibility to the Switch. And if those are too bulky, add controller adapters for motion controls for essentially Wii related games, and GameCube controller adapters for, say, Mario Kart and Smash Bros. just because I think that Nintendo kind of limited themselves with the Wii U and Switch adapters because they are only compatible with Smash Bros. Adding other games with compatibility to these adapters would make a lot of sense. So next up, the first-party game lineup. So at launch in March of 2026, I just thought this made sense just to keep pace with the next PlayStation and Xbox consoles. There will be a new Super Mario Galaxy, maybe a more 3D take. I'm not saying that the linear take of Galaxy and Galaxy 2 wasn't bad, but I just think that more of 3D is better for it. Next up, some sort of Nintendo World. So this is basically little samples of past games from a bunch of Nintendo franchises, just to give people an idea of what they may like in Nintendo games. Next up, Excite Truck. Maybe either a sequel or an HD remake of the first game. Next up, a new Animal Crossing in the veins of New Horizons. The next Pikmin game. And finally, a new F-Zero. Because honestly, there needs to be a new F-Zero. Nintendo said something about how they wanted a new idea from a new console, or new controller, but honestly, F-Zero in the end is just F-Zero. Just give us a new game, Nintendo. So, for the next months, in July, a Super Nintendo remix, if you will. Basically, something in the vein of NES Remix and NES Remix 2 for Super Nintendo games. Next up, a new Star Fox in August. A new Legend of Zelda game in the vein of Breath of the Wild. Kirby Air Ride, either an HD remake of the GameCube game or a sequel. I just feel like this is needed. A new Mario Party game. And finally, a new Pokemon game in November. In December, a new Kid Icarus game, probably a sequel to Uprising, but I guess a 3D remake would be fine. HD, my bad. And then in January, Super Smash Bros. Infinite. I will go over this one more in a future episode, just know that I have a lot to talk about with this one. Next up, I know what you're thinking when you see that logo, but no, it's not a new Super Mario Bros. Game. It would be some sort of collection of the best from levels. Think the Van Gogh style levels in Super Mario Bros. New Super Mario Bros. U, that kind of thing. Next up, a sequel to Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, which was the one starring Ike. Or technically, Radiant Dawn was the sequel to Path of Radiance. I just think that a solid trilogy of these games would be nice, because we haven't seen anything from Ike except for Smash Bros. Since the Wii. Next up, a new Metroid game. Something maybe in the vein of Metroid Prime, but potentially something else entirely. Maybe you could do something like with Super Mario Odyssey, how at times it's switched between 3D and 2D. Maybe you could do something like that with the Metroid franchise. And finally, a new Punch-Out game. We haven't seen one of these since the Wii, and it just needs to happen. Next up, Kirby's Epic Yarn. Some sort of sequel to that game. I have such a soft spot for woolly or yarny games. I just feel like they're so cute. Next up, the next Xenoblade Chronicles. Yes, we're going very RPG heavy with these. A new 1080 snowboarding, because we haven't seen one since technically the N64, although it came out on the GameCube as well. I believe the sequel came on the GameCube. Next, Nintendo Resort. I'll probably go into this one a little more in a new episode, but just picture this. A culmination of everything that has happened on Woohoo Island. Wii Sports Resort, Pilot Wings Resort, the Wii Fit minigames that had references to Woohoo Island, just a culmination of everything that Woohoo Island has been in Nintendo's history. Next up, a sequel to Yoshi's Woolly World, and I just didn't really like the direction that Crafted World took, and I feel like going back to Woolly World would be a nice touch. and Super Mario Maker 3. It needs to happen, and yeah, it just makes sense. So, to summarize everything, the SwitchX will improve the Joy-Cons in the dock, will have full backwards compatibility, Virtual Console, plus ports for other systems, and the game lineup is focused on reviving dead IPs rather than creating new ones. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This is the end of the video. If you liked it, please leave a like, and I'm not going to say anything about subscribing, because I know everybody's throwing all your analytics in their face. Most of my viewers are actually already subscribed, so just keep up the good work, guys, and I'll see you next time.